Okay, it is now 7 p.m., so let's get started. Welcome, everyone. This is the second episode in our second webinar series. We are a little over a month away from finally presenting these webinar episodes for over a year. We are looking forward to that anniversary. My name is Quinn Ackerman. I am the Director of Marketing here at Parco, and tonight I will be joined by my colleague Daniel Hamble, who will be answering questions in the chat window for you guys as I'm presenting. It's so great seeing all of the new faces on tonight, as well as our repeat viewers. And for those of you who've been on before, this part will be a little bit of a repeat. But we are Parco. We stand for Pensioned Americans Retirement Company. And we focus on retirement planning for anybody with a pension, particularly federal employees. We are certainly experts in all the federal retirement systems, and we help federal employees regardless of what part of their careers they are currently in. If they're just starting out, if they're near retirement, if they're living and enjoying the retired life, and everywhere in between. So yeah, that's a little bit about us. You may have seen us recently featured in some of the below publications. You can also find us on our website, goparco.com. We also have a Facebook page where we post updates about what's happening in the federal sphere. And you may have also seen us on our LinkedIn as well as our monthly newsletter. A few ground rules before we get started. For those of you who are new, our goal with these webinars is to cover a broad range of topics where each individual episode is its own specific concept. And the goal of these presentations is we try to keep them under 30 minutes so that they're digestible. And certainly we could spend hours talking about a lot of these things and go into detail, but we do try to keep them to 30 minutes to give you somewhat of an overview about a specific topic. And if you have specific questions about how these things pertain to your situation, or you'd like to get more into the nuances about how these things work, we will be more than happy to assist you one-on-one. Of course, if you have a burning question that you would love answered immediately, please feel free to ask questions in the window. My colleague Danny will be answering those as we go along. You will also receive a survey email after the presentation. We would love you to be as candid as possible with your feedback. We are always looking to improve. And we will also include a link to the next week's presentation and the topic that it covers. So be on the lookout for that. And if there's a certain topic that you'd like us to cover that you feel like isn't talked about a lot and you'd like to get more information on, please let us know in that survey. We are here to help inform federal employees about how their benefits work and how to strategize these things. So if you have something you want us to go in depth on, let us know and we'll get it handled. So without further ado, let's get into tonight's presentation. Tonight, we are talking about how to prepare for federal retirement in 2021. And for our agenda this evening, we are first going to start off by going through a few misconceptions and hearsay about retirement itself. We will then discuss a few benefits that we recommend you get in order before filling out the paperwork, and then a few retirement paperwork elections that you will have to make as well. We'll follow up with some housekeeping tips about the retirement process. And then, as promised, we are going to end with what we feel is a very comprehensive checklist of things you absolutely need to make sure are handled before, during, and after the paperwork itself. So starting with the misconceptions. There's a lot of back and forth about what you actually need to accomplish in order to retire. So when you are ready to separate from service, the only thing standing between you and retirement is 8 pages of paperwork. That is the only thing that is absolutely required for you to do to be able to successfully retire. Now, a lot of the things you see listed here, we encourage you to do and take advantage of as many resources as you need, but do know these things are not required. So you don't have to call HR unless you want to. You don't have to request the retirement paperwork from OPM, nor do you need to complete it with them either. And unless you want to, you do not need to schedule or complete an exit interview. So do know, complete these things and do these things if you'd like, encourage it. But that 8 pages of paperwork is really what you need to be worried about in order to successfully retire. So Now let's get into a few benefits that you should certainly have organized and ready before you fill out that retirement paperwork. And this section may feel like I'm breezing through it pretty quickly, and that's just because there is so much depth we could go on these topics that it would take too long to cover. So if you feel like it's going quickly, it's because it is. And if you have questions and want to strategize these things, please reach out to us and we will certainly help you do so. So the first thing we recommend that you have ready to go is determining your use or lose sick leave hours. Now, if you've ever attended our sick leave webinar, you will know that we always recommend using as much sick leave as you can if you have the reasons to use it. If you don't have the reasons to use it, however, the best next thing you can do is determine the use or lose sick leave hours you need and how much will precisely be credited towards your pension. So in order to determine your use or lose sick leave balance, it's going to be unique for everybody. It's going to be based on what the specific sick leave balance you have now and what you anticipate that to be when you retire. It's also going to depend on your date of hire as well as the date that you do retire. So getting into a little bit of how that works. As many of you know from our previous webinars, FERS employees should always retire at the end of the month. The last day of the month is the best day to retire for FERS employees, but the tricky part about that is that most people weren't actually hired on the last day of the month. So someone's working month, for example, Dave, he started on the 5th. So his working month ends on the following 4th, and that completes 1 month of service for him. But Dave is a FERS employee, so he knows that he needs to retire on the 31st. The unfortunate thing about that is that if he does not have that last full month of service, everything from the 5th to the 31st, that time that he worked, will not count towards his pension. But there's a way that you can fix that. And you can use your sick leave to complete that last working month, those last, as you see here, 4 days. And then OPM will view that working month as a full month, and that full month of work will be added to your pension calculation. So again, this is why your hiring date will affect how many hours you need. But we know that Dave needs 4 days to complete that last month. So to figure out how many hours that is, we're going to look at the sick leave table provided by OPM. Now, there are 174 hours in a working month, and there's roughly that is roughly represented on this table. It's not exact, but you can use this table to help determine how many hours you need. We know that Dave needs 4 days, but the way that sick leave works is that you can, with this table, is that you can round up. So if you have 3 days and you add 1 hour on top of that, that will get you that 4 days of sick leave credit that you can add to your pension calculation. So we know that Dave needs 17 plus 1, which would be 18 hours. So Dave's use or lose sick leave balance will be 18 hours, and that will get him the amount of time that he needs in order to complete that last month. Now, if he has, for those of you with a lot of sick leave, you can add full month increments on top of that, and that is certainly something we can help you with in one-on-one. So after you've finished or figured out your use or lose sick leave balance, the next thing you're going to want to account for is the interim period. And the interim period affects all federal employees. There's nothing you can do to avoid it. And the interim period refers to the period of time where you're not collecting your full pension check. And what do I mean by that? Well, OPM is going to take some time to calculate exactly what they want your benefits to be in retirement. So you're going to retire at the end of the month. And while they're taking that time to calculate what your benefits should be, they're going to send you a reduced pension check for a few months. It can be anywhere from 2 months to 6. Some complicated cases have taken closer to a year. You don't exactly know how long it's going to be going in, but you do know that there is going to be a period of time with that. Now, you will be back paid for whatever you are owed. You will certainly make that up. But this is something to account for. And that's why we often recommend that our clients utilize their annual leave to help bridge the gap during that time where their pension check is smaller than it should be. So if you sell back your annual leave, there's a formula that goes with that. And the formula for that is multiplying your hourly rate, so what you make every hour at your job, and you multiply that by the number of earned annual leave hours that you have. That is your sellback value. This number will be included on your last paycheck. That's often why you hear that phrase, last paycheck's the best paycheck. But one important thing to keep in mind here is that this sellback number won't just be this gross number you see here. It will be a number that's net of 31.45% in taxes. That is an automatic tax withholding. Most people, however, and there's nothing you can do to avoid that either, but most people don't fall into a tax bracket that's that high, or most federal employees don't. So you will get that whatever is an over withholding back the following tax season, but do know that you will have that a little over 31% of taxes withheld from that sellback when you initially get it. Another thing to take care of before you fill out your retirement paperwork is buying back any eligible military time. So if you have any time in military service that did not go towards a retirement, you may be eligible to buy a portion, or if not all of that time back, and that time can be used to count towards your federal civilian pension instead. We almost always recommend doing this. We haven't seen a case yet where it hasn't made sense. You will be paying interest on that time in order to buy it back, but the break even is almost always around 3 to 5 years before that increased pension amount is more than you paid into it. So if you plan on living more than 3 to 5 years after you retire and you have military time that you can buy back, you should absolutely do that. Now, this process is a little it's got some back and forth with paperwork and whatnot, so we certainly recommend tackling this sooner rather than later. Give yourself at least a 6-week window if you can. You may need to request your military earnings, and you can do that using your RI 2097 form, and do know that you will also need your DD 214 to complete this process. So now that we've gone through some of the benefits you really want to make sure are in tip-top shape before the paperwork, let's go through some of the elections you're going to have to make on the paperwork itself. So one of the first things you're going to have to do is decide what you would like to happen to your FEGLI. When you retire and when you fill out that paperwork, you will have to make elections for what you would like to happen to your FEGLI coverages for when you turn age 65. Now, if you retire after you turn age 65, these changes will take effect immediately. But if you retire before the age of 65 and you're making those elections on your retirement paperwork, just note that these changes will take effect when you reach age 65. And the reason this is so important is that some of the costs of these coverages will change in retirement, notably basic life and option B. You're going to have some reduction options. So if you don't want to have to start paying more for the same amount of coverage, you can take some reductions that will cost less, if not free. But be knowledgeable about what these are. And if you need help with that, that's certainly something we can help you with, so that when the time comes to fill out this paperwork and make these elections, you know exactly what it is that you want to do. And the same thing applies to your FEDVIP, your federal employee dental and vision plans, as well as your long-term care. You will be making elections about all of these things on the retirement paperwork. So being informed going in is certainly the best way to go there. And another thing you're going to have to consider, and quite possibly the most important election you will be making on your retirement paperwork, is what you want to happen with your survivor benefit. Now, while you're employed as a FERS employee, your spouse is automatically entitled to 50% of your pension. Doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to do anything for that. It's just one of the benefits of being a federal employee. Now, if you would like your spouse to be eligible to have this benefit in retirement after you pass away, you are going to have to start paying for it. And you would start paying for it in the form of a pension reduction. So if you would like your spouse to receive 50% of your pension in the event that you pass away every month for the rest of their lives, you will elect a 10% reduction in your pension in order to make that happen. You can also elect a 5% reduction to your pension, in which case your spouse would receive 25% of your pension benefit every month in the event that you pass away. You can also elect the 0% survivor benefit, in which case your spouse would not receive anything, but your pension is not reduced either. For those of you who are on our survivor benefit webinar, you know there are certainly implications to each of these options, but the most important point one of the most important factors to consider with this is whether or not your spouse is dependent on your healthcare. So if your spouse, you would like your spouse to continue your FEHB coverage in the event that you pass away, you absolutely must elect at least the 5% pension reduction, that 25% spousal benefit, in order for your spouse to remain eligible to continue your coverage after you pass away. If you don't elect any survivor benefit at all, OPM will not have a pension check from which to take out the healthcare premiums, so your spouse won't be eligible to continue your healthcare. So if that is something that is important to you, please elect at least the 5% survivor benefit. Now that we've gone through some of the elections to make on your retirement paperwork, here's a few general housekeeping tips to keep in mind as you're going through the process. And first, we want to debunk a very common myth that you cannot retire while you have an outstanding TSP loan. And that's actually not true. You totally can retire if you have an outstanding TSP loan. And one of two things will happen. When you retire, you can choose to pay it back if you so choose, or you can let that remaining balance count as a taxable distribution. That will count towards your income the next following tax season. You will pay taxes on that. And that is certainly an option for you to follow. But there's nothing preventing you from retiring with an outstanding TSP loan. It's also important to keep in mind that there will be a 30-day hold on your TSP account from the day that you retire. So you will have to wait 30 days before you can take any distributions, set up any withdrawals. If you'd like to roll over to an IRA, whatever it is that you would like to do, just know you will have to wait 30 days before you can start doing so. Also, if you are married, OPM requires that you submit a copy of your marriage certificate with your retirement paperwork. So have a copy scanned and ready to go because OPM will be looking for it. Another important point that many people don't know about ahead of time is that when you're making that survivor benefit election, if you choose no survivor benefit at all, you will have to get a notary, a notarized signature in order for you to submit that. OPM just wants to make sure that you and your spouse are on the same page with the survivor benefit and how you plan to move forward there. So if you do elect no survivor benefit at all, you will have to get that notarized. Another important thing to know is that OPM is going to ask you for your bank routing info. So you will have to fill that out on your own. And the reason they do that is they need to know where you would like your pension checks sent to. So important to have that to fill out in your own time. And then another really important component of your retirement paperwork is filling out any sorts of workman's compensation claims, particularly ones that you have applied for in the last 5 years. Whether you were accepted or not, if you have applied for any workman's compensation in the last 5 years, be ready to include the claim numbers and the dates that you were given benefits. OPM is going to ask you this, and they are going to double check to see what claims you have had or do have. So be ready to fill out that portion as well. And then another important thing is to know your service computation date. Your service computation date is the day that you started full-time, and OPM is going to ask you for that. Your service computation date will be changed to reflect any bought back military time. It'll be pushed back so that your service computation date is earlier, but it will not be pushed back if you are adding sick leave. So just an important thing to know there. And if you don't know your service computation date, you can find that on your Form 50. And if you don't have one of your Form 50s handy, you can request that from HR if you need. So to sum everything up, we're going to go through the checklist of some of the most important items you should complete as you are going through the federal retirement process. Calculate your use or lose sick leave. So you know exactly how many hours you should use if you have reasons to use them before you retire, and know what not to go over so that everything can count towards your pension and get you the highest pension benefit there. Calculate your annual leave sellback and account for those taxes so you know exactly how much will be included on your last paycheck, and this will help you budget for the interim period. It can also help you bridge the gap during that 30 days where you cannot access your TSP. Complete military buyback paperwork if that applies to you. Know your FEGLI, FEDVIP, and long-term care elections so that when it comes time to fill out this paperwork, you can easily fill out those sections. Also know your survivor benefit election. If you're married, attach a copy of your marriage certificate. Get it notarized, get that paperwork notarized if necessary. Have your routing number handy to fill out on that section of the paperwork, and know your service computation date. Also know and be ready to fill out any workman's compensation claims you have as well. So while this list here certainly gives you some tactical items that you will need to tackle as you're going through the federal retirement process, there's a lot more to it. You are going to need to determine if you are psychologically and financially ready to retire. There are many situationally dependent aspects that go into your decision making, and we're here to help you talk through those things and make sure that you are ready to go and that it is the right time for you. This is what we do every single day. Our clients value working with us because we help them feel confident about that retirement decision. And truly, our current record for getting somebody retired is 4 days. We certainly recommend giving yourself more time to plan. We always say the more time you have to plan, the better off you tend to be. But if you need to get out fast, we can get you there. And just to reiterate how crazy of a point this is, somebody we talked to at Christmas was retired by New Year's. So if you need to go and it's time for you to go, we can help you do that quickly. Here's our works cited from this evening. Feel free to request these sources. We're happy to send them if you'd like to do some research on your own. And we also have some upcoming webinar topics as well. Next week's topic is going to be Social Security, which is questioning your conventional wisdom. Then we're going to go through military buyback, disability retirement, comparing FEHB and Medicare, and we're actually going to go through filling out the retirement paperwork step by step as well. If you need to reach out to us, you can email us at info@goparco.com. Our phone number is 833-GO-PARCO, which is 833-467-2726. And a real person will always answer the phone every time. You can also reach out to us on our website, goparco.com. We are going to hang around for the next few minutes, answering any questions you guys have about our presentation this evening. We applaud everyone for being on tonight, and we look forward to answering your questions and seeing how it can be of help.